Latanya. I am the founder of Empowered Wellbeing. We are a health, wellness, and self development community for trauma survivors. And today we are getting into a really good topic, and it is about surviving trauma after being a first responder and also a veteran. I realize that these humans, these amazing people, they wear their capes and they're superheroes for our community all across the nation. But the question poses, what happens to them after they've experienced a traumatic day at work? And how do things unfold for them in their personal lives? And how are they able to still show up for the world when each and every single day of their lives they're faced in situations where they're serving our community, but then they're also impacted by what they see on a day-to-day basis. So today I have Dr. Bianca on, and she's going to help guide us through her process and how she helps her clients. And also, we're hoping that this inspires someone that may be a first responder or a veteran, where you realize some of the things that may be going on in your personal life. And then, hey, you may want to seek therapy or help with someone outside of what you're currently doing just to help you manage. Because we know that you guys and women, do such an amazing job for our communities. So I am going to allow Dr. Bianca introduce herself. We're going to get right into our episode for today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me today. My name is Dr. Bianca Ramosdelrio. I'm a counselor and counselor education supervisor, and I deal primarily with military and first responders, working a lot with their trauma. And yeah, I mean, it's a it's a very interesting topic, but it's also a very underserved community. We do have a lot of military and first responders who are sometimes not even seek help. So I'm hoping that today's conversation is just going to encourage them a little bit to just possibly seek help. Yeah.
I agree with that one. And I think that was one of, this whole space that I am building through this awareness is that those that are listening, if they're in these spaces or if they're experiencing some of the things that we're talking about, that it would help lead them, because sometimes we just need the light bulb to go off to help kind of guide someone else. And that's again, is spreading the awareness. So I do hope that through this conversation, because again, these are our superheroes for our communities throughout the world, and these people, they do an amazing job. And they show up, my heart goes out to them, because again, they see so much on a day-to-day basis and they experience so much serving our country. So let's get right into it. And this is dedicated to those for sure that are serving the world. All right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Bianca, can you explain some of the unique trauma challenges that military veterans and first responders face compared to other trauma survivors?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, even between military and first responders, they are both distinct cultures. So, they, for within themselves, experience different traumas, obviously, on a regular basis. When we first started with our military, I mean, they mainly face the trauma situations when they are being deployed or overseas, or even, for wherever they're going to be called, where there are possible war situations, right?
Mhm.
So, and then the first responders, they are primarily and dominantly active all over our nation, serving each and every day, right, in these traumatic experiences that they may occur. And it's something that, not that one experience is more than the other, but they are just very unique in what they may endure, right? And if we think about, again, going back to our military, thinking about that, experiencing just the guilt sometimes, where they would have to kill people for the greater good, for the nation, for their country that they're fighting for. It's going to leave something with them because you have taken a life,
Yeah.
right? It may be that, it may be where they have endured some sort of cruelty, as far as like, may it have been done to someone else, done to them, and that again leaves an impact that creates trauma. And we are not really understanding, I think, from our side, how it may be for somebody in the military, because number one, you are signing a contract, you are locked in. It's almost like you're very confined with your possibilities, that if you are in a certain trauma situations, you are like in a certain mental state, how am I going to get out?
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes they still want to pursue a career. So
Yep.
then they have this balance of how do I do that and still cater to my mental health, where the mental health often takes a backseat.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
agree.
once the mental health takes a backseat, we see a tremendous amount of struggling soldiers or airmen or sailors, whichever branch we are talking about, who then sadly go to a route of suicide. So, I mean, there is a lot that can be discussed in regards to that situation. And then when we look at the first responder side, each and every day they have to endure crime. They have to come to accident scenes where body parts are laying all over the place, or child abuse. I mean, you name it. It leaves something that you constantly have to endure, and it puts you almost like in a state of numbness, right?
Yeah.
This is what I hear a lot as well. And
Mm.
when you get to that state, you also are not processing. So it's again different, but a lot of trauma, which is like the topic, right?
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so how do you approach helping veterans and first responders process trauma when they often feel a need to maintain a tough exterior?
Hmm. Hmm. So when people first come in, what you do first is build rapport with them, right? And that really just depends on how open are they to wanting to receive help. But oftentimes, because we are a civilian organization, a private practice, and they come often on their own will, they are more than likely wanting to work on what they need to work on, right?
Right.
But it still takes time because I'm a stranger to them.
Right. Yeah.
And we have to build, again, as I already mentioned, the rapport to have them be able to share their internal feelings, their processing, even going back into childhood, because oftentimes, there are childhood matters that matter to today,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is a very important component, because oftentimes we have trauma on the surface and trauma underlining. And sometimes whenever they meet, then
Mhm.
it's going to be even more difficult. But I mean, the approach is the same for every client that we have, just with starting building rapport, working on having them feel comfortable. Once they open up, we kind of navigate from there. And oftentimes I do apply EMDR, which is like a very, very good approach to work with trauma,
Right.
specialized, and however, again, therefore within itself, it can take a time of maybe sometimes 3 to 6 months before we even get into it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think it's I think it's in anything that we do, the relationship building and the trust is a huge factor with people, and it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of helps people to kind of relax more. And I don't know, I think sometimes we've been kind of taught as a society that we shouldn't talk, or we kind of close ourselves off from
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable, and I know for sure it takes the trust and the rapport to be really built for the barriers to
Mm-hmm.
start coming down, to open up, to be able to start expressing what has occurred. So yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Well, and also you want to think about talking about feelings, specifically for men, is something that can portray a certain weakness,
Yeah.
right? It can portray a certain vulnerability.
Right.
And oftentimes, men, whenever they were raised,
Yeah.
you need to be tough, you need to be
Yeah.
hard, don't show no emotions. And even to this day, we still sadly raise our boys
Yep.
in that manner. And, if we would then just allow, and this is possibly also going into a little bit of a different direction, but I'm just going to say that much as if we would allow our children and our boys specifically be able to feel more, be able to
Right.
express their feelings more, later in life, they would be having a little bit of an easier time,
Yep.
right? To kind of process
Yep.
also these matters.
Yep. And not getting off topic from again this too, but I agree because I think that what ultimately happens, it impacts the ability in the relationships when they become adults, not being able to express, or the wife or the
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend feels like, oh my God, like, can you express how you feel about me? And deep down inside, they may genuinely care about that woman
Mm-hmm.
or the relationship that they're in, but because they've been taught boys don't cry, boys don't show emotions, and sometimes it's taught, that again, men, they don't always talk. So I think that it is so important. I agree, that's a good one
Mm-hmm.
to point on. But
Mm-hmm.
getting back to our topic today, I just wanted to just
Yeah.
say that it's okay to express yourselves, guys.
Mm-hmm.
If there are any men that are listening, I know that we've been taught, not as a woman, but sometimes as men, you guys have been taught, that, but I do think that it's okay to express emotions. It's not a sign of weakness. So, all right. So, getting
Mm-hmm.
back to our topic, how do you help individuals in these professions overcome the stigma often associated with seeking mental health support?
So, it's everything is up to the client themselves.
Yeah.
And once they are in that space of allowing themselves to open up and being able to not just be directed by our society, but more
Hmm.
by for within themselves, that is
Hmm.
really where the true direction starts. And it starts with them, not really with me. You
Yeah.
know, I may just maybe ask questions sometimes where I ask, so what purpose does that serve for you? And oftentimes just the serving part for within itself resonates for with a lot of people. Because I
Right.
also speak a lot of on how we talk to ourselves impacts how we, talk to others, and also how we listen to others, right?
Yeah.
And then if we think about the the inner communication is very powerful, but we often give power to others,
Right.
right? As soon as we think about stigma, we need to understand that we give up power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. Now, just out of curiosity, what are some of the common signs of PTSD and trauma related stress that may manifest differently in the veterans and first responders?
But I mean, if we speak of on first responders and military, trauma presents and manifests itself often very similar, if not the same, right?
Right.
And I mean, people, they have nightmares, they get angry. It's different things as far as like even physical conditions, as far as illnesses can come up,
Hmm.
We usually say that your mind directs and navigates and impacts, on your whole body of
Right.
how you and what you have to process.
Right.
So there's actually a very interesting book, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yep.
And it speaks very beautifully also on how stress really leaves a mark on your physical health. And
Right.
it's interesting because oftentimes we really just pay attention to our physical being as far as
Yep.
health, which usually starts from the neck down for most
Right.
people. But you have to understand your mind dictates how your
Right.
body functions. So, and then speaking on how it manifests, we also have to understand people cope different ways with
Yep.
different stressors, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes what we see is, alcohol and drugs.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes also it results in domestic abuse towards their loved
Hmm.
ones, which
Hmm.
is a very, very sad occurrence.
Yep.
But I mean, those are usually the coping mechanisms that people go to, that are
Hmm.
obviously not healthy.
Right. I agree. And we do see that a lot. We do see it a lot. And I don't think that sometimes we are consciously aware of how it's impacting those around us too, unfortunately. That's why I think it's
Mm,
so important that I hope that this message hits for some people that may be suffering and not aware of what's going on, that they just seek, local help wherever they may be
hmm
located, for sure, to get that assistance to help them through, to help, with their family as well. Now, just out of curiosity, can you explain the impacts of the nervous system, that how it may be
mm.
impacted, especially for those who've experienced repeated exposure to dangerous situations?
So, just how I mentioned a little bit ago, it's something where once your mind and your internal being experiences trauma, you
Right.
are literally being affected by, like a fight and flight situation, and fight or flight, kind of blanking at the moment, fight and flight response
Yeah.
is what I'm looking for. So if we think about it like that, when you experience trauma from whatever is happening to you, and you create some sort of, let me just push this away, I
Right.
mean, but in your mind and in your nervous system,
Yeah.
it's still there, it's still present.
Yeah.
And there may be triggers, that come up for you later down the road where this is being triggered again. And then similar situations, or, not even similar situations, sounds, noises, smells can bring that
Mhm.
up again. Right. And then all of a sudden people wonder, I don't even understand why this is happening, you know?
Right. Right.
Or if they kind of know a little bit, because, we are very good in keeping tabs on certain smells, certain feelings sometimes, then we are able to kind of target it a little bit easier. But oftentimes, people again push it down and push it away,
Yeah.
where they are then just dealing with these nervous system responses and just reactions that come with all of that,
Right.
and that for within itself creates like a whole another and bigger animal, because then we are looking at, severe depression, severe anxiety, getting and becoming antisocial, and constantly having to watching your back for no reason, but for them a reason. And there is just a constant threat that's there. So there's just
Right.
hyper alertness on a constant basis. It's just also sometimes the force of, again, ending in physical issues for within themselves, right?
Right.
So again, I mean, to me, the mind and the body, obviously we are connected, right?
Yeah.
From the top to the bottom. And if your nervous system is not 100%, because, you're constantly being impacted by immense trauma situations, or even here and there have endured trauma, but it just left such a big impression on it, then
Right.
we are constantly experiencing triggers that may come up in our everyday lives, or here and there, with,
Right.
the results and how it displays itself.
Right. Now, let's talk about community support in helping our veterans and first responders in their trauma recovery. How can the
Mhm.
community and also their loved ones be a better support? What
Mm,
advice or thoughts of suggestion would you give to?
mm,
Because there may be a family member that may be listening in for
mhm.
someone that they know, right? So, what would be the words of wisdom that you would give a family member to help their loved one?
When you bring that up, my brain goes like this, and I'm like, this is a very loaded question,
Yeah.
because you may have family members that may be in different situations due to whatever their family member is going through, right?
Yeah.
But I think the most straightforward way is to just help their family member understand that seeking talk therapy is not something that's reflecting upon you, who you are as a person. It's not a weakness for within you, you know just possibly helping them with some videos, helping them with some material that may help them understand. Because oftentimes, and that's the sad part, whenever family members may bring up aiding material, right? It's being pushed away even more so, because there's this emotional connection. And oftentimes, when there is this emotional connection, shame and uh, just a self feeling of a not good enough, or just
Mhm.
different things may come up where they even be more reluctant to
Mhm.
seek help. And then, of course, there's the stigma often of, in the military specifically, if you look for mental health, it can impact your career. Hence, I'm rather not going to do it because I don't want to impact my career. This is my livelihood. And similarly, it's also something for the first responder community, because there's always like a certain, how do I navigate? And then if it goes through the system for within their job, right, for within the military, then, not you, but they worry about having things on record. So I think for family members, it's just possibly passing along the information that they can find to just help them,
Right.
because in the end, the service member will have to make their own choice. And if they are able to just take the step forward to
Right.
try it, that is something I want to say maybe the best thing to do.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And what are some things, just out of curiosity, do you think there could be more community initiatives that could be started for sure in regards to helping the first responders and veterans?
Mm-hmm. So I honestly find that first responders are more underserved than the military.
Wow.
Because the military for within themselves have a lot of resources from what I have seen thus far. Now, there
Right.
are some growing organizations that also cater towards the first responders.
Mm-hmm.
But again, depending upon where you live and, where you are, it is still very
Yeah.
limited towards the first responder
Yeah.
side. There are a lot of organizations that cater towards trauma in general. They want to help people, to cope with their trauma. And
Yeah.
I, for myself, I also have a nonprofit where I utilize horses for, also helping people coming down from that trauma.
Yeah.
So there are organizations.
That's
Yeah.
good. Okay, that's
Mhm.
good. That's really good.
Mhm.
All right. So, what type of therapeutic techniques do you find the most effective for the veterans and first responders dealing with trauma?
So we usually work a lot with EMDR. And I
Okay.
know I mentioned that earlier already.
Mhm.
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And what it basically focuses on is the key moment of when you have endured the trauma, and work from there forth to help the client understand, that that was then and you are now, and just to separate the emotions from the actual occurrence. And that for within itself, I have found to be a very, very good approach, to just use with them. Of
Yeah.
course, we also have the, CBT approach, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, right? But again, for me and for my understanding and just uh, opinion, EMDR to me is the not the best, but one of the best approaches that we can use. The only thing that I want to encourage people to keep in mind is to make sure you go to an EMDR trained counselor.
Right.
Sadly, a lot of people sometimes may offer it, but they are not really specialized in it. So
Yeah.
I just want to help, also people educate themselves and make sure that they do the homework before they see somebody who
Yeah.
uses that as well.
Yeah. That's good. All right. So, how
Mhm.
do trauma related issues like hypervigilance, anxiety, or emotional numbness impact relationships for those in these professions?
So, of course, all of these aspects like hypervigilance, anxiety, emotional numbness impact, as you just named them, the client in general, and it's really interesting because oftentimes when people come into my office, they like to sit with their back to the wall, keep the door in their
Oh,
point of view. And that's like one of the interesting pieces of working with first responders, but more so with the military. They don't like to sit with their backs towards the door because they want to see what's happening.
right.
And, in general, I often have been told that when they are out in the public, they have already this like always looking around, always looking what's happening. Where, there is a big, big, big percentage of hypervigilance that is just present for within the military service member, but also for within the first responders. However, more so, I think, for within the sheriff's department and police department side, because they constantly have to be hyper vigilant because they
Yeah.
constantly going into these environments where they may be shot at any given time,
Yeah.
and then it obviously also then flows into the anxiety aspect, right? Because extreme hypervigilance results into extreme anxiety, which then it can be very, very impactful on your body. Again, if your anxiety goes up, all these negative hormones impact you, right? As
Right.
in your body. And then people have issues with sleeping, they're irritable, they're angry, And when you are constantly also exposed to immense trauma or just trauma here and there, but on a consistent basis, you become numb, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you just want to shut down and not want it to impact you.
Yeah.
However, the numbness goes across the border. The
Right.
numbness goes across the border and impacts the family members as well.
I agree. I think it's a thing, like you don't want to relive the experience again, the emotions of what all
Mm-hmm.
comes with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I agree for sure with the numbness. All right, so to
Mm-hmm.
leave us off in honor of Veterans Day,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give military veterans and first responders who are hesitant to seek help but struggling with trauma related symptoms? What type of words of wisdom and inspiration and empowerment would you give them, so they know that they're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
and just words of wisdom that we could leave them with today?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I just want to leave them with what you also just said. You are not alone. There's
Yes.
many people out there who work just like you in the first responder and military realm, and there are trained professionals who are there to help them or help you get the help you want and sometimes need to
Mhm.
navigate life. And even if you would not be a first responder or if you would not be a military service member, I want you to kind of think about it like more like that to understand we all struggle with everyday occurrences and
Yeah.
situations. And sometimes it is just very hard to navigate, and a voice of reasoning often can help you just get these aha moments, right?
Yeah.
And I named my private practice the conversation location because I want people to see that literally when you come in, all we have is a conversation. There
Yeah.
is nothing behind it where anybody sits and points with the finger at you. There's nobody there who's going to come at you with some sort of judgment. It is literally just having a conversation to help you open up your mind to create actually more mental wealth for your
Yeah.
side that you can carry forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that is good. Dr. Bianca, I thank you so, so, so much. I thank you for the work that you
Yeah.
do. Again, these superheroes, as we would have to call them, because again, they're on the front line, whether it's a first responder, being a veteran, serving our country. They are the people that protect us. So
Mm-hmm.
today's episode is in honor of Veterans Day, and I want to salute my hat to those that serve our world to help us to make it a safe place for us to live within our communities. And my hat goes off to you guys and gals today. So I thank you, Dr. Bianca, for serving and helping
You're welcome. Thank you.
our community. And until next episode, thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe. I will make sure Dr. Bianca's information is listed in the show notes. That way, if you guys are in her area, you can for sure reach out to her for assistance along your healing journey. And we are honored and we thank you for listening to Empowered Wellbeing. Until next episode, have a good day.
Thank you.